Hi everyone, and in this Colour with Claire tutorial slash colour along slash masterclass, I'm going to be showing you how to do a few elements from this page here, and this is from the book The Fantastic Four Seasons. So this page incorporates lots of different things. So we've got wooden flooring, we've got stonework on the walls, we've got a fireplace with a roaring fire. So I'm just going to incorporate a few different tutorials, tips and tricks to getting these looking as realistic as possible. So all you're going to need for this tutorial is coloured pencils. I'm using Prismacolor, and I'm also using some Spectrum Noir Blending Solution, otherwise known as Gamsol. So that's totally up to you if you want to use that as well, but I'm just using it to create a really smooth look on the page. Okay, so let's start with the wooden flooring. Now for this one, I've actually pre-selected three Prismacolor pencils. So we need dark brown, burnt ochre and goldenrod. So I'm just going to get my pencil case out and pop those out. So burnt ochre, dark brown and goldenrod. And they're going to be the three colours that we use for our wooden flooring. Now I'm going to zoom in here a bit so you can see this a bit closer up, maybe not that close. There we go. And I usually use three colours for my blends. It's always helpful to have a dark, a medium and a light colour, and these three go really well together. So we've got our darkest, our lightest and that medium tone in there, and these are quite warm browns, they're not cool browns, so they're going to be really good for putting next to this fire because it's going to give that warmth of the glow of the fire as well. Okay, so first of all we're going to start with our darkest colour, which is dark brown. And we're going to start from both sides of each panel. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very sort of light scruffy layer of colour. Up to about, maybe back a little bit, so don't do that much, yeah. Because we're going to need a bit more glow around the fireplace. So yeah, let's keep it really kind of a small area of the darkest colour here. And we're just going to do this across all of the panels. So it's a really rough layer. It's nothing perfect or precise at the moment. That's what we're going to be using our blending solution for. But I mean, wooden flooring is really rough and rustic looking anyway, so if you wanted to keep this granular look, go for it. It really would be in keeping with the type of subject matter that you're colouring, so it's totally up to you. So just carrying on doing a light layer with the dark brown, and you can sort of mix up how far the dark brown comes out on each panel. We don't want it to look like the dark brown only comes out to here and completely stops still. We want it to be a little bit of a sort of a zigzaggy rough look, so it's not completely precise. So the lightest colour that we're working with is the goldenrod on this, and with it being closer to the fire just here, I want more of the goldenrod on these panels of wood that are closest to the fire. So we're going to be slowly bringing our dark brown further out into the panel as we get further away from the fire. So more of the lightest colour right near that fire, and then less of it as we move away from the fire, just to create a bit of an illusion of glow. So we can start to bring that a little bit further out now, and further out again. Okay, so that is pretty much a basic layer just on these first few panels here. Now we're going to go in with our next colour, which is burnt ochre. And we're going to go straight over the top of the dark brown that we've put down, and then just out a little bit into the white that we've left. So going over the top of the edges of the dark brown just helps to blend it a little bit more. And again, we're coming out a little bit further as we move away from the fire. Okay, so just making sure that on the very edges of this burnt ochre, we're leaving just a very light whisper of colour for the goldenrod to blend into better, so it doesn't come up against a very harsh end line. So goldenrod, we can just go straight over the rest of the white space that we've left. And straight over the top of that burnt ochre as well, just to help blend. Now, there's nothing to say that you can't leave it just like this. I know that a lot of people do like to work with pencils quite lightly and still have that tone, that texture of grain, and that's totally up to you. But I do like to smooth it out and just make it look a little bit more seamless and nice and blended together. So this book is perfect actually because the paper in this book is really quite toothy and it can take a lot of layers, so it does leave a nice grain on it anyway. Okay, so now we've got our base layer down. I'm going to take a paintbrush, any old paintbrush. You can even use a paper stump if you wanted to. And I'm also going to get hold of my Spectrum Noir Blending Solution, which looks like this. All you have to do is be very careful that you don't spill it everywhere, because that's happened to me a few times. You just dip the end of your paintbrush into the solution, and then starting from the lightest colour, because it does tend to drag colours sometimes, we're just going to paint over it. So there's no pressure needed whatsoever. You can keep adding more and more solution to the brush if you need to. Now you might notice the other side, the illustration from the other side of the page coming through, but as soon as it dries, that will be completely opaque. You won't see that anymore. So I'm not sure whether the camera's picking this up, but you might be able to notice that all that grain is disappearing, and that's because the blending solution is actually breaking down the wax that is inside the pencil. So it's breaking down the wax, which in turn smooths out all of that grain. Now don't worry about blending solution making things bleed on the other side. Most of the time it doesn't. In fact, I don't think it ever has when I've used it, so don't worry about that. It is a mineral spirit. It's not water or anything that's going to really saturate the page and make it all wavy or bubbly. So it dries really, really nicely. And the great thing about blending solution is that once it's dry, you can keep going back over it with pencil. And in some cases, it actually makes pencil colouring a lot easier to go over the blending solution than it was before, because it's a nice smooth surface for you to work with. So there we go, we've got the first layer of our colour down, and hopefully you can see that it looks really smooth. I know that you can see all of the bits from the other side of the page through it at the moment, but that will dry, as you'll see, and it will be completely just the wooden panels again. So what we're going to do is we're going to carry on from the other side and do the rest of the floor so that you can see what it looks like when it's finished. Just take a gulp of tea. Good old British tea, keep me going. And then we will start from the other side. So again, we're starting with the darkest colour, which is the dark brown. We're going under this table here, which would create quite a lot of shadow, so we can pretty much just do that whole area in the dark brown. Remember to make the edges sort of jagged so they look a little bit more natural and not stopping at a certain point. I hate colouring edges because I always seem to rip up the side of the page, so I'll do it this way. So you see how this is drying and the lines are starting to fade away that are behind the page. It does take a little while to dry, but it's not wet at all. It's not like you can, it's not like water. And also when you look on the back, this will fade away as well. You're not going to be left with this huge patch of like what looks like water. It will fade away as it dries. It actually evaporates, so it doesn't dry as such, it evaporates. It's really, really useful stuff, especially if you can't be bothered spending a lot of time, blending here, there and everywhere. Let's move this camera down a little bit so you can see the whole thing. Okay, so that's the dark brown layer. Actually, forgotten to do this side, haven't we? Let's just do a bit of that quickly. So let's say we're going to come right in as far as this. I've got those pesky edges of the page again. There we are. So something a bit like that. And what I love about the blending solution is that you can just be super rough. You don't have to be precise. It's just one of my favourite things. So we're going in with the burnt ochre. Just going straight over the top of our dark brown again. Exactly the same as we did in this portion here. And then from the other side inwards again. So it's basically like a mirror of what we did over this side. We'll always end up with the goldenrod in the middle. So when you're happy with the position of your colours, you can go in with that goldenrod and fill in the rest. Just do a little bit around here. There we go. So once you're happy, again, we're going to go in with the paintbrush and the blending solution. So just dipping that in, getting it nice and coated, starting from the central point now. As you can see, this is drying even more now. All of those twigs and leaves and branches on the other side of the page are disappearing slowly. Just no effort whatsoever with this. That's what I love about it. And it's sort of like magic. It's like you can see before your eyes. You're just painting this stuff on and it's just smoothing all of that tooth, all of those white speckles away. When I first started using blending solution, I thought you had to be really, really hard on it, you know, with the paper stumps, these things. These are paper stumps. And I was really sort of scrubbing it into the page, but I learned that you literally have to paint a layer on as lightly as you would paint anything else. And it still breaks down that wax. It doesn't need any of that kind of pressure or help to do it. Just have to try and be a little bit careful around bits like the cat's tail here. But I might even do a black cat, so in that case it doesn't really matter. I can see that I've left a bit here, so I'll just get the pencil out in a sec and fill that in. Can you see now how all of those tree branch lines have all but disappeared from the first part that we did? Okay, so that is pretty much covered, I think, in the solution. Just a little bit there that I've missed. And then this part under the cat here. And scrub a little bit of colour in and go straight over it with our paintbrush. Okay, so as you can see, we can now see all of the branches and things from the other side down here, but they've completely disappeared from this side. And this little bit is drying really well, whereas this bit's still really wet that we've just done. But as you can see, it is disappearing. It's not actually affecting the other side at all. Okay, now that this bit over here is pretty much dry, I can show you how we can really make these colours vibrant and go over it again to, you know, saturate it a little bit more. So if you're not happy with, for instance, how it's gone a little bit paler than it was when you first put the colour on, you can go straight over the top and add more layers. That's the brilliant thing about it. So coming straight in here with that dark brown again. and it changes the texture of the paper, so it makes it much smoother, and it is really nice to go over blending solution in pencil. It's just effortless. It feels like it just glides on. So I'm deepening the colour that we've done. As you can see, that's quite deep now. It sort of matches the other side. And again with the burnt ochre, you see how that's making the colour more vibrant and saturated, but we've got a really nice smooth look to it now. And then finally with the goldenrod. So we've got a really nice smooth look to our flooring now. It's got that glow coming from the fire, which steadily tapers off as we get further away. So it's nice and realistic. Now if you really wanted to, you could go over that again with the blending solution if you feel it's not smooth enough. I'm pretty happy with how it looks at the moment, to be honest. The blending solution's given us a smooth base to work on for our second layer, and it just looks brilliant. So I'm going to leave that as it is. Don't really want to keep adding things and then it'll get worse and worse, you know. Just leave it as it is if it's good. So obviously this is looking a little bit smoother than this side because we haven't put our second layer on yet. But that still needs to dry a little bit. As you can see on the other side, it's still a little bit wet. So we'll wait for that to dry. Now I'm going to do her dress. So again, with the fire being there, when that's coloured in, it's going to give off a glow, and to make it realistic, like with the flooring, we need to make sure that her dress is catching some of that light as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out canary yellow, a little stump of canary yellow, and I'm going to draw a line following all of the curves of this dress that are closest to the fire. So just like this, and maybe this one as well, and let's do this one just, yeah, okay. So that is the parts of the dress that are closest to the fire, and they're going to have a bit of a glow. We'll do her sleeve as well. Now I'm going to make her dress purple because looking at this page we're going to have an awful lot of brown on the floor and on the beams as well at the top. And we're going to have an awful lot of grey on this stonework. And we're going to have an awful lot of red and yellow tones, same with the brown, you know. So I thought maybe bring a bit of a cooler side of the colour wheel in here and do her dress in purple. So we've done our highlights around the dress. Now we're going to get our purples out. I'm using greyed lavender, dahlia purple, dark purple and black grape. So they're the colours that I've chosen for the dress. Now, starting from the lightest and going the closest to all of the yellow that we've done, we just put a little layer of our lightest purple, which is this greyed lavender. And that's just to help the yellow transition into purple, which is pretty much an opposite colour to yellow. So we'll just put that following the yellow. Maybe put a bit more yellow here actually. So we're working sort of outwards away from the yellow. And you can do this across all of the parts of the dress, even the ones that don't have the yellow. because we are going to be filling the rest in purple. So you can do that pretty much everywhere. Just follow all of the curves and stay on one side of them. So I'm staying on the right hand side of every line. That's pretty much it. We can go back in a bit and fill in the bits we haven't done. So the next colour is the lavender. In some areas you might not have too much room. That's okay, just put a little bit here and there. It's just transitioning. Each colour is a transitional colour to get to the next one. So with this dress, picking up the highlights of the fire, I'm imagining it's quite a silky dress. So we can just give it all these different shades to make it look like it's ebbing and flowing with the pleats on the dress or where it's falling. Again, just being really, really rough with it. I'm not being precise whatsoever. Okay, next colour is our Dahlia Purple. Doing exactly the same again, just in these small spaces, just fit it in wherever you can. Okay, next colour, dark purple. So there should be just a little bit of room left for the last colour. Just try and gauge it as you go through. Okay, and the last colour, the black grape. This is a really, really dark colour, so just be careful that you don't put too much of it down, basically. Just be careful where you're putting it. This is our shadow shade, so we don't need a lot. It's just to give that impression that the fabric is catching the light in each flow, in each, you know what I mean, in each pleat. Okie dokie, now once you are happy with how that looks, excuse me, my throat is awful today, we're going to get out that good old blending solution again. and our paintbrush. And again, starting from the lightest, so the yellow, we'll just paint this on. To be very careful on the yellow that you don't drag any purple onto it, but after that you can pretty much just paint it on. I'm just sort of wiping a little bit on my thumb if it's picking up that purple and putting it onto the yellow. I'm just trying to keep it away from there as much as possible. You see how it really smooths everything out. Wouldn't recommend putting this on your skin, by the way. You probably shouldn't be doing that. Let's get a piece of paper and use that instead. So a little bit more precision required than the floor, just so that we don't completely cover up that yellow, really. It's great with the blending solution because you really can just push colours around. You know, if you feel that it's getting a bit linear, not blended looking enough, then you can just push it around. Just want to bring that yellow out a bit more. Make sure that we're not losing that yellow. Again, we can go back in afterwards and put another layer on, so it doesn't really matter. So just tip for this would be really just to work from the lightest to the darkest rather than the other way around, so you don't completely sort of envelope everything with your darkest colour. Envelope? What kind of word? You know what I mean. Avid viewers of my videos will know that I very often lose my words a lot, especially on these sort of live tutorial things. But I think you'll pretty much know what I'm talking about most of the time, hopefully. So I'm breaking my own rule here and going from darkest to lightest, so just got to be careful. Also at the same time just trying to make it look as smooth as I can, because that's the whole point of using a blending solution. That's why it's quite a good idea to use a flat-edged brush like I'm using here, because you can sort of use the corner of it to get into any tricky bits. Okay, so what I'm going to do is leave that to dry and then do another layer with pencil just to finish it off and smooth it out, some of the areas that I'm not too happy with. But you know, we've got the basics there, we've got the basics of the light, the different ways that the light's hitting this dress. So yeah, let's leave that to dry. Oh, in fact, we didn't do the sleeves. I better do those really quickly, hadn't I? Okay, so just going in with all our different shades of colour. And let's go in with our darkest here, because this looks like an area of shadow. And maybe darkest over this side. And then just work our way from dark to light this time with pencils. Okay, let's blend that. Okay, so now that we've done the dress, we'll wait for that to dry, pop our blending solution away for a bit and just complete this side of the floor. Now that this is completely dried, you can just see on the back the difference between where we've done the dress and where we did the floor, so that's completely dry. We've got none of that imprint showing through. And we're going over our first layer just to bring out the colour, really, just to saturate it a little bit, just like we did before. And then the burnt ochre. And the goldenrod. So it really just intensifies the colour when you go over the blending solution. There we go, just so smooth compared to how it looked originally when we put that very first layer down. It was incredibly grainy. Now it looks lovely and smooth. So what you can do if you want to, totally up to you, is get yourself a pigment liner. I'm using Statler here, you can use any that you like. And if you wanted to, you could add in your own sort of bits. This one doesn't work, it wouldn't, would it really? Let's try another one. Add in your own little bits, here we go, of grain. Here and there. I mean, this picture itself has got quite a lot of sort of bits of grainy looks on the wood anyway, so I think that this one might be running out as well. But you get the gist. So this always happens. This always happens on videos when I need things to work, it doesn't. But anyway, you get the gist. You can go over it with a pen and make sort of grainy looking things if you want to, knots here and there and things like that. So now that the dress is getting nice and dry, let's just go over it and try and make it look a little bit smoother. So here, for example, I can see that my dahlia purple is sort of a very harsh line, and I don't want that, so I'm going to take the lavender and just go over it a little bit, and you see how much smoother that looks now. It's so easy to work on, this blending solution. It's just lovely to colour on top of. Now I'm going to put a bit more dark in at the edge of this sleeve. So I mean, you can see how this second layer just really smooths it out completely. There's nothing to say you can't do this just with pencils. You don't have to use a blending solution at all. I just find that some people don't like to take the time to do that, to get it really, really smooth, and the blending solution sort of the middleman. It's a bit of a shortcut. So this isn't very smooth at all here, it's really, really jagged. So we're going to go in with our colours, just try and smooth it a little bit. There we go, beautiful. So it's all about just playing with it until you're happy with how it looks. So eventually you'll end up with a beautifully smooth looking dress with lots of light and shade. And I think I might just put a little bit more yellow on those areas just to brighten them up. And we are done. So in this video you should have accomplished how to colour wooden flooring and how to colour fabric folds, and also incorporating the light sources coming from the fire as well, both on the floor and on the dress. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions, please do leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to try and answer them for you. If you've enjoyed it, do click subscribe, because that really helps me to get every single subscriber on board. I love getting subscribers. And oh, I've just gone completely over that with blooming purple. I'll sort it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon on Colour with Claire.